And our last class, we took a look at you as an individual in the FM profession. What directions, what paths can you take? What opportunities, are there for a career? We have another class coming for, starting the business, growing a portfolio, incorporating and running the FM industry. Today, we are driving along that path of your career as a facility manager. You are working as a facility manager in a corporate environment. I'm sure we've resolved the question as to the relationship between me as a facility manager working for a FM company or working for a demand organization that actually uses FM services. And we said, bottom line is that a facility manager's role, whether you're an in-house FM or you're an outsourced FM providing FM services from another third-party service provider, the focus of strategy, the focus of all planning, the focus of all value creation is with the demand organization. So whether I'm an FM employed by a demand organization or I'm an FM employed by the service provision organization and I'm seconded to this demand organization, my role will be to create plans and strategies that aligns with the demand organization. So in talking about this lesson, strategic facility planning, everybody's thinking should be towards that direction. It doesn't matter whether you're working as a direct staff of the demand organization. Value from you will depend on how well you create strategic plans for the demand organization. For one, your career will be enhanced. You'll have a lot of growth opportunities. Your contract will be extended and renewed and expanded as your relationship with this organization improves, and you'll have more opportunities in your careers in the future. So that's how I want us to take position ourselves in looking at strategic facility planning. It all starts from this very slide, which I call the big picture. Every organization, in every industry, no matter what business that organization is into, for profits or not for profits, governmental or non-governmental, every organization exists for a purpose. That purpose will usually depend or reside or be the call of their primary publics or primary constituents or primary clients. We call them the customers. An organization's reason for being is that there are customers willing and able to patronize their services. Whether it's religious, commercial, free, paid for, it doesn't matter. You have a customer. That is the highest level of strategic reasoning. Why are we doing what we are doing? Why is the highest question you can answer. We call this level the strategic purpose level in the process of developing your strategic facility plans. You are just a facility manager. What is your business with the customers of the organization? After all, this is something that is discussed at very high levels. The investors, the executive management, senior management, they make decisions about how to meet the needs of the customers. What then is in this knowledge for you as a facility manager? Everything you do as a facility manager will be wrong if you don't understand why your organization exists in the first place. So your first point of reasoning of strategy is to think about why we exist. Who do we provide services for? Who are we here to serve? And trust me, this knowledge would affect everything you do, up to how you schedule your cleaners, how you buy your diesel and fill your tanks, how you reorder stocks and replace your inventory items, how you even relate with the people that you work with, and how you relate with those who come into your facility. Your customers could be physical, face-to-face. So you create that beautiful ambience, and they look at the organization from outside and they'll be like, this is a fantastic organization to do business with. I would love to patronize this organization. Now, what they are seeing yet is not what the organization does. It's not the core business. What anybody sees from outside your physical edifice is facility management. But it creates a perception of quality. It creates a perception of trustworthiness. It creates a perception of credibility. If facility management from an external perception is already top notch, when they come in to transact, to make inquiries, you know, there are certain environments you will enter, they will tell you something is 100,000 naira for one small item. And you won't ask for any discounts, let alone negotiate it downwards. You just feel it's worth it. Whatever they say here is correct. Because you are impressed by the ambience. And you ask yourself, why would I come and be eating the same ewa going in this place for 3,000 when I can eat that ewa going at the junction for 200? The same ewa going, the taste may be the same everything, ingredients and all. But this guy will serve you ewa going for 3,000 naira, and the mama put at the junction will serve you ewa going for 200 naira. You'll be happy to pay 3,000 naira to eat ewa going in this place because you perceive it as high quality. You can even conjure up in your mind how they use sterilized water to cook, how they make sure that everything is done right, just because of what you are seeing. What you are seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is facility management. One more instance. You go to the market to buy bread. You always buy this bread of 500 naira a loaf. Same size as another bread of 1,000 naira. Same size. Maybe you've tasted both of them. Taste is not much different. How well does it feel you? About the same. And you feel, why would I waste money? Imagine yourself going on a major event and you needed to buy bread, maybe 100 loaves of bread to make sandwiches for a group. And you have to visit both bakeries to place an order. And you get to the bakery where they come out with this 500 naira bread, and the whole place is stinking. There are dead cockroaches on the ground in reception, and there's smoke and soot all over the place. And you go to the other one where they sell the bread for 1,000. It's just as if you are entering the reception of a 5-star hotel. You don't see any smelly or dusty or insects. In fact, the grounds outside are manicured with water fountains and stuff. And you're like, can this be a bakery? Just that difference in perception from you now experiencing their facility management. Mind you, you've experienced their bread before. You don't see much as a difference in the market. But now you have experienced their facility management and you are thinking, my goodness, if I continue eating this cheap bread, I might end up finding millipede inside my bread one day. And it will be an experience I cannot forgive myself for. So I better switch to the 1,000 loaf of bread because I think they are a better company. What did I observe? Facility management. So everything you do as facility management, as a facility manager, must be linked all the way to the top. The reason why your business exists, the kind of customers your business attracts. Now, before it gets to your own level, which is at level 4 of strategic planning, I'm teaching you 3 levels above where you normally will operate as facility managers because they answer the questions why you do the things you do. What you can answer for yourself at the tactical planning level, which is the level at which the facility manager operates and plans and implements, is what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? But why has previously been answered. You have digested it, you understand it. What and how now comes to be an alignment with the original reason why you exist as a business. You will not see yourself in conflict or fighting or in disagreement with anybody in the business. You know your role. You now know when we say an FM is a strategic enabler of the success of a business, this is the Holy Grail. This is the secret. You will not be in conflict with your bosses. You will not be in conflict with any customer. You will not be in conflict with, you cannot write policies that are anti-clients, anti-co-workers, just to make your own work convenient and conducive for you. No, you won't do that because you understand why you were hired in the first place and why you are doing the things that you have been asked to do. At the highest level in your business, the entire organization will come up with what we call this corporate strategy. This level is called the strategic planning level. The C-suite, top management, the board, they are the ones that sit here and say, what should our mission be? What should our vision be? What should our values and culture? What strategic objectives can we set for ourselves as a business? They make all those high-level decisions. You will not likely be there. But these things will start being churned out in form of content in our website, in forms of annual reports, in form of memos from management, in form of processes and procedures to guide all that we do down there. As facility managers, the first level of strategy for us is the business unit strategic planning level, where you run a department that we say is a strategic enabler of the success of the organization. You must create strategy. Your strategy must align two ways. It must align with corporate strategy, which means you fully understand corporate strategy. You're creating a point-by-point strategic response to every corporate strategic objective. What does this mean? The organization wants to achieve 5 things in the next 5 years. How will FM support item 1, specific plans, item 2, specific plans, item 3? Every strategic objective must have an aligning strategy from FM. Your strategic plans must not only align with the corporate strategy, but must also align with other business unit plans. Why? HRO knows that there will be need for staff because we won a big contract that we're mobilizing in 6 months' time. So they start planning. You could sink your head in the sand and wait for HRO to send you a memo to say, provide sitting accommodation for 200 new staff that are resuming next month. What does that do to you? Oh my goodness. Next month, 200 new sitting, how am I going to cope? Start crying wolf. What were you doing all the while when the business was expanding? Telltale signs, increased marketing, budgets in certain direction, spending in certain direction. So many things we were telling you that we are actually making more, we're actually getting bigger. So you stay in your lane, like we also always say. Don't bother others. In FM, you can't. You can't stay in your lane. You didn't come to work like them. You didn't come to work as them. You came to work because of all these other business units and you came to work for them. For them, not just with them. So what does this mean? As you are creating your strategic planning, you are going to different business unit heads to ask, how can we provide for you in the next 3, 4, 5 years. What can we do to enable you succeed? That is the question that will elicit the information in their plans. So that information might have been documented, some of them might not have been documented. In most cases, they don't even see you as deserving of the information of their plans. Why should I be telling you my long-term plans in my department? Who are you, facility management? No, I should tell you what to do when I need it. So you need to break that barrier. You need to have that correlation, that interface that helps you not only observe, but also elicit relevant information to create your strategic facility plan. What does your strategic facility plan entail? What does it contain? You know, we talk about mission, vision, values, and culture, and strategic objective of the main of the corporate strategy. You need to actually replicate all of this for your FM departments. You need to have data on all of your portfolio. How many buildings do we have? Who sits in what? What kind of functions do they perform in each one? What are they trying to achieve by using those buildings? If I invest so much in these buildings, what am I getting back in terms of productivity and well-being of the users of this building? You have to understand your portfolio, what spaces, what services, where they are. And then you create plans. You create two key plans that form your strategic planning. The first one is your real estate master plan. This is a plan that is produced for each location. Each location will have an evolution. How did we start on this site? Was it rented? Was it bought? Was it built? What are we going to do to make sure it continues to comply with our requirements for the next 3 to 5 years? It's more of site planning, more like an architectural work that is born out of programming. Get data from programming, which means you elicit user feedback and management feedback to make projections and plan for, is it renovation? Is it expansion? Is it remodeling? What kind of changes will you take in the future to ensure that this space becomes continuously useful? Are we going to build more new blocks, or what are we going to do? That's the real estate master plan. Are we going to start building parking lots on high rises because we're going to build new structures on where we currently park, and so on and so forth? It's more like revisiting your creating a master plan for your site and revisiting it on a regular basis to, as you add more bits and pieces into its fulfillment and execution, you revisit and revise. That's your real estate master plan. It's your site plan. Now, your real estate master plan will exist for every site. But then you now need to have a strategic facility plan. What we also call your portfolio plan is an encompassing plan that creates provisions for processes, procedures, patterns for making decisions that will guide every decision and action you take at the master plan level. So the strategic facility plan is at the portfolio level, is sitting up there. And the facility master plan is at the site or location level and is sitting below here. And they both interact because the master plan cannot go against stipulations in the strategic facility plan. Then to our tactical planning. This is where most FMs think their careers should start and end, where you create operations plans, maintenance plans, you come up with budgets, you create design and construction plans. You put contracts in place, and so on and so forth. You do all of this at the tactical planning level. So if you are not even there yet with being able to create design and construction plans, come up with budgets for a year for O&M, for capital replacements for the next 3 to 5 years, for example, maintenance plans that has a sequence of activities, with accompanying budgets and resource allocation for who will do them, operations plan for how certain activities will take place in your site. You have to do cleaning, you have to open and close offices, you have to do security. So many things fall into these plans. Proactively, If you're not there yet, you are still at the shop floor where you are doing the execution level. Execution is, what should I do? How should I do it? You're not even deciding what to do and how to do it. That's what's happening at the tactical planning level. At the execution level, you are receiving what to do and how to do it. So for those of us who are still working in organizations where management will be the ones to draft templates for you to do certain reports, they'll be the one to make out a checklist for you to start doing your inspections, they'll be the one to create a log that you must fill regularly and return back for them to review. There's a problem. When you wake up and see your budget, not you having any inputs in your budget, it means that you are being given what and you are being given how. Your value can really not be established. And when I was doing the 3 levels of FM operations the other in our last class, I said everybody, both in terms of how you organize your team and your FM department and how you move your career, should go from the operational, tactical to strategic level. It is cooler at the top. So get smarter, gain experience, start doing things from that higher level so that when somebody asks you why you are doing certain things at the level you are doing it, you know why. You can answer intelligently. You have points to present. Now, even at execution level, how do you know whether you are even doing well or you are not doing well? Many FM departments don't even have any means of measuring performance. If there's no escalation, we are doing well. If no customer is crying, we are doing well. We are reacting very fast. We are all good. You must have specific reporting mechanism, audits, inspection tools, surveys that elicits inputs from your users. These are the key tools for gathering the data that will help you know what you are doing from one period compared to another period, right? Now, at the basic level, you are doing continuous improvements. If you have things you have measured over time and you are doing trending of how I'm doing. Customer complaints have been going down, so that means I'm doing better. Number of rework, how many times they call us back to come and do certain jobs, it's also going down. That means I'm doing better. The kind of recommendations I get from customers as I'm telling them, it's getting more. That means I'm doing better. When I do survey of customer satisfaction, the percentage is improving. Oh, I'm doing better. And so on and so forth. You are measuring performance because you are actually recording data that you can use to create a trend for continuous improvement and for information. But that is not all. This information is supposed to help you validate strategy. It's supposed to go back in a feedback loop to ask questions like, do I have the right strategy? Are my strategies aligned with corporate strategy? Am I implementing my strategy with the right tactics? Are the outputs from the tactics I'm implementing yielding the kind of results that will meet key performance indicators, which again is tied to corporate strategy? So in essence, I am doing this validation at every level. What am I doing? Am I doing it well? Execution. Right? Tactical plans. Are they in alignment with my strategy? Is my execution fulfilling the requirements of my tactical plan? Tactical planning level. Business unit strategic planning level. Am I properly aligned with corporate strategy? Are the tactics I'm deploying actually implementing the strategies I have developed at my business unit strategic level? You ask these questions again and again. And why is this so important for facility managers? And why should you learn it early in a diploma in facility management course? Because we need to elevate ourselves. FMs have been at the bottom for too long. We think like chickens when we are actually supposed to be eagles. We can soar, we can fly, but we can only do that if we can begin to start understanding the language that senior management speak, so that we can flow with senior management. We can respond to the thoughts that comes from their heads and their minds as the direction of the business. And we can act in ways that shows that we are strategic enablers. The moment you know this and you are able to reason high-level reasoning at this level, you will always rise, both in the organization and professionally as an individual. So this is one of the most important lessons you will learn as a facility manager. This is what differentiates people who have served for 10 years, 15 years in FM, continually seeing themselves as outsiders, always having conflict with management, never aligning, always seeing themselves as specialists and experts, and going against procedures and processes, trying to step out of processes to get their ways all the time, and creating bottlenecks for the organization unless they listen to you. And everything must be done in your own way. After 10, 15, 20 years of that pattern, you just realize now that you have wasted your career, you've wasted your time. You could have learned this early enough so that every decision you make, you think about, how do I analyze this with data? What do I measure? What do I collate that helps me support the claim of continuous improvement or alignment with strategy? You'd have known that. How do I align with management? Do I really understand why we are here at all? Or I'm the one that wants to spend and spend and spend without even thinking of the other options? That is what this course is going to do for us. Lift us up, elevate us. So in essence, you are supposed to create a 2 to 5 year facilities plan encompassing an entire portfolio of owned or leased space that sets strategic goals based on what? Organization's strategic business objectives. The strategic facility goals in turn examine short-term tactical plans, including prioritization of and funding for annual facility-related projects. You can't just wake up to say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I think we will need this. Based on what? What data do you have to support that this investment is going to add value to the organization? Value to organization at what level? If you don't understand strategic objective of the organization, how are you going to prove that what you are trying to propose or push to the organization is going to add value to it at all? And that is why we are doing this. So where do we start from? The process is very simple. You start by understanding your organization. You start by understanding your organization. What's our mission? What's our vision? What's our value? What's our goals? How will we be doing financially? What are the projections? Are we getting better? Customer knowledge, internal business process and learning and growth. There are so many ways you can spend time understanding your organization. We'll talk a little bit about some of them here. And then using analytical tools. What are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, for example? Who are our competitors? Do environmental scan. Who are those challenging our business? What are the policies of government that is going to make us richer or poorer? You see, sometimes I teach FMCs and it looks like, what is our business? I cite one particular example. A few years ago, not too long ago, prices, skyrocketed, everybody, inputs became very expensive and organizations could not really produce the same output for the same prices. Many organizations adopted different strategies. For some, they just raised their price up. People adjusted eventually. For some, they reduced their size, their quality, their quantity, just to keep to the same price that people will always buy. If you work in an organization where they took one of these strategies and it backfired, how would you respond? Would you even know as an FM that the product of your organization is not even being sold, that goods are going out and returning back unsold? Should it bother you? Of course you should, because your job is on the line, especially if you don't read the handwriting on the wall on time and see that I better start looking for low cost and zero cost options to solve the problems we have here. Start pumping out all of those requirements and those requests, you might be in trouble soon. But many of us don't know. So when you hear somebody being laid off, I laugh. I cannot understand why you will be the one to be laid off when everybody were not laid off. You should be the last person to be laid off. In fact, you should be the one to help with the laying off, because you read the signals on time, you made adjustments, you recalibrated your operations, you did few new analysis, and management will be impressed at how well you understand what's happening. And when they say boom, there's money for this and money for that, you see the handwriting on the wall, you read it, you create plans to ensure there's proper investment. You do investment analysis. That's what we're talking about here. Don't see yourself as an outsider to the business, because that will not help anybody. And then you create plans to meet the long range needs of the organization, and you review annually, and you continue to update these plans. And then you take action. You implement the plans, continuous improvements, expansion and remodification of spaces, new construction, new acquisitions, new equipment replacements, and so on and so forth. Understanding your organization should start from your own portfolio. If I asked you, will your organization need a crutch in the next 3 to 5 years? Based on what data will you be able to answer that question? A knowledge of the caliber of people we have recruited in the last few years, a trending of how our numbers have been rising, and the demographic in terms of age brackets between the staff that we've been recruiting. As an FM, I should know. I provide spaces for everybody. I provide services for everybody. I have everybody created inside. If I'm using a software for managing facilities, they are all there as my customers. I send emails to them, they respond to me. But that's even going a bit too far. How many square meters do you even know you have that you're managing right now? If somebody were to ask you to justify the 5 million you are spending per annum on landscape costs, can you even say, this is how much landscape cost me per square meter? Because you know the total square meter, you know the amount, right? That's the only time you can come and say, yes, this is how much landscape cost me per square meter. Because you want to be able to compare your own cost with benchmarked best practice costs. But if you don't know your own metrics, how can you improve? So you cannot begin to create plans until you understand your organization and you understand your facilities. The current condition of our facility, the current assets level we have, the current defects or condition assessment that we have done, everything is in one hand. My business, the way it is right now, I fully understand. How many workers, who are those in management, those on the shop floor, what they're trying to achieve, I know right now, right? Then I now say, take the business. What the business is trying to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years. What are the goals? What are the milestones? As I establish that, and then I establish my own gap between my facilities and my business right now, and then gap for every year. The business is going to move from A to B next year. My own facility management department is currently providing level 1 services. What will level 2 services that will match the requirements of the business at point B be like? We're going to move from point B to point C. What will my level 3 services for year 3 be like? Because I want to always close the gap between what I'm providing and what the business needs, because I am the strategic enabler of the business success. Lease data, ownership data, building assessment, square footages, space utilization standards, and so many things. There are some offices in very highbrow areas that are just locked up. The staff who use those offices are always on the move. The FM had not come to terms with how do we calculate utilization percentages for our spaces so that we might be able to change some things to save money. If it's a thing of prestige that we furnish large offices, 4 or 5 locations for this big orgas, then yes, I have to write that as a value. I need to know exactly what that means. How much is a square meter of rent in my space in this area? And how much have I put in here? So how much does a day of providing this 40 square meter office cost my organization? If I have those numbers and management are talking tomorrow about how to sack 2 cleaners and reduce the thickness of the hand wash, you know how cost saving can become a big issue. They'll say, oh, this perfume you are using is too expensive. Air freshener, use the lower grade to reduce cost. We'll be looking at the wrong areas for value when we are pumping millions into some other areas that are completely ignored because you as the FM don't even do any analysis. That's where it starts from. You should be able to predict future headcounts, demographics, specialization, maintenance requirements, capital investment, and operating costs for your facility. Lots of work, very scientific, also requires a lot of intuition. But in all, the data has to be right. The analysis has to be right. And then scenario planning. You know, if you don't have a plan, there will be no way to start talking about scenarios. What scenario means is that certain changes externally or internally can affect my plan. It presupposes that I have a plan. So when I'm doing scenarios, I'm asking questions like, if the factors that are today constant that makes this plan valid, if they change, what is going to happen to my plan? And what are going to be the likely options I will take to tweak my plans in such a way that I can adjust or respond to those changes? That's what scenario planning is. It's like looking through the glass to see into the future. But in this case, you are not really seeing into the future. You are making guesstimates of future changes, and you are retweaking your plans and creating plan A, plan B, plan C, just to ensure that if any of those likely occurrence manifest, you have a way to respond or to deal with it. And then systematic layout planning is basically how to use charts and tables and spreadsheets to plan so that you can see things clearly. Take process documents, for example. There are process documents that you can write, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Everything is paragraph and paragraph and paragraph of wording. But you can take that same process document and turn it into a graphic. One box, this. Next box, this. If a judgment question, if this, this. If not that, the next. And then you have done systematic layout planning. For those of us who are occupying high rises, for example, a block plan layout, for example, will help you. We call this one stacking plans or block plans, where you decide if I put the medical clinic on the 6th floor, if somebody has an emergency on the 2nd floor, will it be easier to go up or to go down, right? People in this department, they receive many visitors. And so there will be a lot of traffic to their area. Should I put them lower floor, closer to certain entrances, or should I put them in certain back end locations? You are doing that because you're able to move things around and decide, okay, this goes to level 4, this goes to level 3. We do systematic layout planning all the time. All right. So use them as a way to visualize your plans. Part of planning, and then you analyze to be sure that you are creating the right plan, that you fully understand what you are doing. There will always be risks, there will always be opportunities around us, around our organization, but we must always be alive to them. Analyze strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats using business objectives to identify both internal and external factors that are either favorable or unfavorable to achieving that objective. So take strengths. Strengths are internal positives. They are what we are good at. Weaknesses are internal negatives, what we are not good at. And then opportunities are external positives, what we can take advantage of. Threats are external negatives, what can take advantage of us. Thinking about this in two broad levels, one at the corporate level, and then again at your departmental and facility level. So when you create your plan, you are documenting objectives that you want to address, which means the gap that I explained before has been established, now documented using metrics and numbers. Evaluate sites, zoning, cost, labor, competition, and all factors critical for success. Conduct financial and risk analysis to focus on finding the maximum value. Develop alternative recommendations and priorities. Now, so if your analysis is right, you will not come up with one solution. You won't come up with one idea. There will always be at least, my rule of thumb, 3. Okay? That's where alternatives. If you develop solutions with alternatives, with pros and cons for each alternative, what's going to happen is that it shows that you understand what you are trying to solve. It shows that you have considered everything in and out. You've not boxed yourself into one pattern of thinking, and your recommendation will most likely be accepted as okay. Before you start launching out any kind of strategic planning, you must get approval from top management. And then your plans will either be the strategic facility plan, the master plan, okay, and then the annual plans, which are often referred to as the approved budgets, or the one we referred to earlier as the tactical plan. You know, at the tactical planning level, you have the budget for operations, you have the budget for maintenance, you have maintenance plan, you have operations plan, and then you have the budget for construction, and then you also have the construction plans and designs. Okay, now we're going to look at the strategic plan, the strategic facility plan, and the master plan a bit more closely. And I use this example charts of what can be in each of them. The master plan can contain information on zoning, regulation, covenant assessments. You know, if you bought a land in some residential area or bought a house in a traditionally residential area, you might think it's okay to bring your workers in there, shut your doors, and just be working, like working from home. Now, if the authorities find out that you have turned that place into a commercial space where you are now actually doing work, not residing, that can be a big issue. But mind you, there are some neighborhoods that have over time gradually changed from residential to commercial without anybody taking any steps to change the zoning and ordinance and covenant assessment of that neighborhood in government files. Because it is law. When the government designates a quarter as this and that, it is passed into law. There has to be an actual amendment to that enactment for use cases and zoning regulations to change for that area. In some cases, you are actually actively in an area that is residential and using it as, you know, lodging quarters, guest house, or empty apartment, and that area's zoning changes. When that area's zoning changes, you need to be aware, because the next building beside you might be demolished and a filling station will be built right beside you. which therefore means that you can't continue to live here because you are no longer living in a residential area. What a master plan does is define what zone this area is for this particular office, factory, guest house, whatever we have in that neighborhood. And then the master plan also establishes space standards together with benchmarks descriptions. What it simply means is for every occupant in a particular, what kind of occupants can be here? A company can have 2 campuses, one in Ilupeju, one in Ogba. And they would have made decisions around what kind of facility will be built in Ilupeju and what kind of facility will be built in Ogba, right? So for those facilities, there will be what staff, what people, who will use them. For everybody that you are creating a space for, it has to be based on a space standard. What does a space standard do? A space standard explains how much quantity of space is required for certain positions, certain activities. There are 2 levels where you create space standard. What is the person doing? And what is the person's position on the hierarchy? How much space? What kind of ambience, what kind of furnishing and fittings should spaces have based on your work duty and your position in the organization? What kind of services is required? Internet, intercom, TVs, and so on and so forth. Water and toilets and feeding and conveniences and so on and so forth. What should be there? The space standard for every site needs to be maintained, needs to be set and needs to be maintained. And then the program of space use. Program of space use refers to different work groups or different user groups, how much space they need, and how those spaces will interrelate with each other. Workflow analysis is helpful in this area where this department relates to this a lot and they should be adjacent to each other. Engineering assessments and plan. Engineering assessments could go in many directions. A simple one nowadays is you have your site and you are busy in your office deciding that you're going to make a 20-story building on this site, and you are creating all of those. Plans around how you're going to build your 20-story. But meanwhile, all of your neighbors have 25 stories now. You still want to build 20 stories for sure, but you have to be able to guarantee that you can find cranes that can go high enough over all of your neighbors, because when your cranes are swinging in every direction, you cannot break down somebody else's house, right? Just one of it. And then some of us have complex systems in plan, the sewage system that will release effluents to this direction. What kind of drainage is there? Where is that drainage going to, for example? We're going to have heavy equipment. This company does this and that. What kind of road do we have? Those interlocking roads that they build on marshy paved area that are not very reinforced underneath. Are they going to take it? A lot of questions needs to be asked. Okay, is that location even going to carry the kind of structure you are trying to build? Block fit or stacking plans talk about every level in a high rise or in a sprawling campus, who sits where, what kind of department, what kind of program you have in place, and how they relate with each other. And then your site plan, of course, very key. Your site plan could be a total master plan for the entire site. And then it's not what you're going to build or going to see now. And it can begin to evolve over time, right? You could have a parking lot, which in the master plan shows that it's going to be a high-rise building. And where you're using as your main office right now is showing as where you're going to use as driver's lodge and security lodge and maintenance offices. Now, in the meantime, you probably have 1 or 2 porter cabins at the back. sitting in spaces in the future that will be used to plant some trees and create some kind of pool to be more sustainable. All kinds of things. It evolves, but that evolution should not be on whim. You wake up, tell me how big that area is. They just measure for it. Ah, that area is big. I didn't even know that place is as big as 3 plots. Let's put that that new 10 story we want to build. Put it on this side. Just put it on this side. Go and call the engineers, come and design. You're not working with a master plan. Because what a master plan helps you do is that you think through a lot of things. You think through everything from your organization's purpose, down to objectives, down to long-term plans, so that by the time you get to the site level, you already have a lot of considerations that's going into that plan. So everything from architectural, engineering plans, everything fits into your site plan, which is also called the facility master plan. Your strategic facility plan, on the other hand, contains higher level considerations. A statement of facility objectives. You know, in your corporate strategy, there are strategic objectives for the organization. Your job as a facility manager is to create facility management objectives that aligns with every of those corporate objectives. And then you do high-level risk analysis of options. You know, if you are trying to fulfill those objectives, then you are coming up with plans and ideas. I'll give you a typical scenario. I was in a bank and talking with some facility managers in the bank, and we're there for energy efficiency. We'll try to see how we can install an energy management system for detailed monitoring, so that we can trap and remove all of those energy that is being wasted, because it's a lot, and then retrofit equipment that are guzzling a lot of energy. And you know, to my shock, I was told we are just about moving away from the grid and turning this into a renewable energy building, where all our energy will be produced within this building and will become sustainable. And I said, hold it. What analysis have you done? Just by listening to the way your HVAC system, your air conditioning is shouting right now, I know that you are wasting up to 40% of energy powering that HVAC. Are you going to use solar? How much solar will you generate to waste 35, 40 kilowatts every hour on just this particular? You're going to have an excessive capacity, which is going to cost you so much. At the end of the day, you're going to be feeding that power into systems that are wasteful. So how do you become sustainable just by switching to renewable when you have not improved the efficiency? Those are the kind of analysis that are done here. Step-by-step process for taking decisions. So that nobody can just wake up and start a project, because that's what's happening everywhere. That's what's happening. People just wake up, create a business case. I think business case comes later, after all of this planning has been analyzed, discussed, agreed to, and approved. But if they don't exist, what you're going to have is business case. Oh, the MD's vehicle fell into a ditch when they were coming here. Business case for redoing all the roads in this campus. We are no longer going to use this and that. We're going to use solid pavement. We're going to do reinforcement. Oh, approved. Just because MD's vehicle fell into a pothole and got damaged. And all kinds of decisions can happen in organizations that will lead to millions and billions being spent without it being tied to strategic planning. Even financial analysis, like return on investment, net present value, internal rate of return, and payback period analysis, needs to be prepared. Okay, so benchmarks for this financial analysis needs to be set in place. For example, if you are investing in this kind of project, which will be seeing a return on investment of, so and so percent. If we're investing in this kind of projects, we should be having a payback period of not more than 5 years, 3 years. You set up all of those here so that whoever is going to come up with a project tomorrow, oh, let's build a high-rise parking lot. It's sweet to say. Because we just have this advantage now. We one of our sites, we have plenty of rock, so we can get granite for free. Let's just build a high-rise. That is circumstantial. You go back to your strategic facility plan and ask yourself, what is going to be spent on this? How does it meet the benchmarks previously set for our organization? Life cycle cost analysis. There are projects that you will embark upon, and immediately you arrive with the delivery. It's a white elephant project from day one. You didn't do whole life cost analysis. So the guideline for ensuring that you don't make a mistake in jumping into a project that can become a white elephant project in your organization, and you have huge sunk cost of projects that did not meet their goals or meet their requirement. The strategic facility plan helps to put all those guidelines in place. By the way, none of these plans are set in stone once they have been made. In fact, every of these plans, these two plans, this for the whole organization, strategic facility plan for the organization, and the master plan for each site, they need to be revisited every year. Circumstances can change, conditions can change, government policies and procedures can change, laws can change, new preferences from internal and external stakeholders can come into play. So many circumstances can lead to previous assumptions no longer holding true. So instead of not making the plans because you need to be fluid and flexible and respond to circumstances as you go, make the plans, but revisit the plans on an ongoing basis so you can take a fresh look at the risk you analyzed before, take out the items that are no longer risk items, add new risk items and do fresh analysis and come up with tweaks on your plans that will make it useful for your organization. And why are we teaching this to facility managers? Reason number one, we have not been thinking this way. We have allowed this thinking to be handled by management. So they have done the analysis and they have dropped instructions for us to implement. And I dare say that not many of us are too happy with the way management takes decisions that affect our own business units. But we have abdicated. We've not applied ourselves to that strategic level of reasoning so that, one, we can already proactively show value to management and reduce their burden of going to think and analyze for us. And two, we will be in control. Because we speak the same language and understand management, whatever we recommend will be seen as appropriate, especially if our analysis captures the right data, presents the right trends and analysis, and aligns with strategic objectives from senior management. Everything we say will become scripture. And finally, as an individual, if you want to stay at that point where you are always the one measuring liquid soap and sharing it out for cleaners and counting how many mop buckets are still left in store, you can be there all your life. It's fine. I mean, people work at the shop floor all their career and they never get elevated. But don't also complain that you're not finding fulfillment in your career. Don't complain that you're not being listened to by senior management. Don't complain that you don't get approved. Every time you want to do something worthwhile, you're not getting approval. If you don't change your thinking, start gathering the right data, start doing the right analysis, start presenting strategies to management that aligns, that shows that you are contributing to what management worries about. Don't complain, because that's what we're talking about here. I hear FM say things like, oh, they're doing construction. They said, it's not my business. Now they're going to build rubbish. Now they're not calling me to come and take over the building. They will spend extra money in trying to fix things now. They'll start breaking things and start. Look, a failure is your failure. In fact, that particular failure is your own failure. Because if you were always churning out proper strategic analysis in the past, it's your name that they will call first when the thought of that new site or construction came up. They will know that if they ask you a question, you will have a valuable response. In fact, before they ask you the question, you've done some analysis and you are there with some numbers. Is FM a hard job? I don't think it's a hard job. We can put our minds into it. We can put our hearts into it and start developing ourselves and studying and researching in ways that we can begin to become more valuable to organizations. So you act by implementing the plans that have been made, the new space is created, the space you have is either altered or reconfigured, and so on and so forth. Those are what the outputs of that process is. And when you go through this process of planning, design, construction, testing, commissioning, handover, up to facility management, you are in that circle where the strategic facility plan and the facility master plan are being implemented. Because you're planning for a new site, whether you want to rent it and renovate it, whether you want to rent it as is, whether you want to buy it and renovate it, whether you want to buy it and enjoy it as is, it's already done, or whether you want to build a new facility by buying land and constructing. You have to first start with planning. What do we want to use that space for? Which customer requirements are we going to meet with that space? What workers are going to be there? What kind of activity are they going to perform there? What kind of services do they need? We'll ask all those specific questions and we draw up what we typically traditionally call a brief. When you call an architect and say, oh, come and build for me. I want a school. There's no Turkish, Indonesian school around here. I want to bring in some of those Oriental cultures that teaches blah, blah, blah. So I need a school that will help me, express this, my idea in this neighborhood. They're not competing with me around here, right? Now, that's what you say. But there's no way that will be enough information for a design team to develop even schematics or single line drawings or bubble diagrams. They have to understand more. What kind of departments, what kind of people, students, teachers, what other stakeholders, how much space will they need? So you go into design because you've done full analysis of requirements. The owner's vision is interpreted in planning. When you get to design, you are now creating a concept that is been existing in the spirit. You are bringing it into the physical. You are trying to do something that helps to visualize that brief you received. And then the design is not just architectural. Design includes electrical drawings, structural drawings, mechanical, plumbing, air conditioning, name it, right? Because everything will have to fit in and must all be aligned to what you received from the owner during the planning stage. And then bills of quantities. Seeing all of these specifications by all these consultants, how will it be brought into reality? And with bills of quantities comes contracts to implement them, to execute them. And then a project plan to execute them, right? So you have design drawings, you have specifications and bills of quantities, you have contracts, and you have project plans coming out of this phase of design. In the phase of planning, you had a brief, in which you have distilled the owner's concepts, vision, ideas, scope of work, and then you now translate that into a design with these 4 components. When you go into construction, you are implementing based on the project plan, the design, the contracts, and the bills of quantities and specification. But you will make changes. There will be all kinds of changes that you make. You need to start documenting these changes again. During construction, the bills of quantities will be revised, and there will be an as-built bills of quantities that captures specifications of what actually went in. The design drawings, which came in here and were translated or transformed into construction drawings so you can get more details on joining and work methods and processes and specifications. When there are changes or modifications or actual implementation, certain details that were missing or changes that were required will now need to be edited, and you create another set of drawings. So design drawings have become construction drawings, and then construction drawings have now become as-built drawings at the end of the day, where you are documenting exactly what was done. And this applies to both architectural, mechanical, electrical, and all kinds of drawings. So the bill of quantities as built, all of those drawings as built are coming in as outputs from the construction phase. Testing is a process of checking for functionality. Read my lips. Checking for functionality. If you go to do a lab test, what do? You go there and they take a sample, they put it against certain things, and then they come out with a result. But they don't just tell you the result and ask you to go. They write the result in a sheet that has what the normal range should be. Automatically, if you don't add a comment, you can interpret, I'm in the normal range, I'm within the normal range, I'm below or above. Then you can now ask the question, how bad is it, right? Because you now know you're out. So nobody can come and test for you by switching off and on things in the construction site and tell you are doing testing. They say, put the gen on, we're testing it. It's working, right? Power this, oh, it's working. Here we have tested. Testing what? There are operating parameters that every asset have been designed to operate with. Those parameters must be stated in the testing documentation. And every time you do tests, you measure using certain tools and instruments, and you take live readings and you write against those parameters, and then you give your remarks and judgments. I'm sure many people are wondering, in all my years in construction, I probably have not seen a testing of operation. Because I have actually walked away from a testing operation. Testing and commissioning, by the way, they call them testing and commissioning. They're two different things. I'll come to commissioning in a bit. Just the testing. People could not even meet the requirements of testing. No documentation to show what we should expect this test to be matched against. And you want me to sign a document to say tested okay as consultant? No way. When you come to commissioning, it's a bit more involving. While testing will test for functionality or test matching functionality against operating parameters, commissioning tests or checks for adequacy. Listen again. Testing checks against operating parameters or functionality of that asset or that equipment as stipulated in the operating parameters designed for it. But commissioning is checking for adequacy to meet the needs of the users, the owner, the stakeholders, whoever needs to use that space or that asset. So your air conditioner can be cooling. If you put your hands around it, it's actually cooling. But this room is a room where 40 people are supposed to sit down and receive lectures. Their energy level is low and there's not much heat generation. So when you are doing a commissioning of that AC, you will not only check for the amperage, the wattage, the cooling temperature in Celsius or whatever, you are going to check for how people feel after 8 hours of sitting in this room. So something can test okay, but fail commissioning. If after 3 hours, we are all doing this because the sun came up around 12, between 12 and 3, the room became unbearable. And by 4, 5, it became cool again. That air conditioning, though it passed testing, has failed commissioning. And this applies to every component: your stairwell, your floors, your tiles, your painting on the wall, your windows, your doors, everything from structural to mechanical to electrical to plumbing. They need to go through separate testing and separate commissioning. Okay, let me not lie to you. This is very rare. It rarely happens. This is exactly what should happen, but it rarely happens. And then when we come to handover, what happens? Oh, it's handover time. We all come together, they prepare a big meal, we sit around the table, we do a party and say, oh, we are doing handover. And we take pictures. Handover is documentation. So let's continue with the pile-up of documentation I talked about before. From the design, from the planning stage, there was a brief. From design stage, there was a contract, there was a bill of quantities, there was a design, there was a project plan. We moved to the construction stage. You now have all of the variations and as built of everything added to it. And at the testing stage, we will have all of those test information that records the real output. And at the commissioning stage, we're beginning to check against, each of those assets and documenting what our experiences are. Everything are gathered together into a handover documentation. So I might be seeing a big, nice, fine building. It works so well. Everything's looking so nice. If you didn't give it proper asset documentation, there has not been a handover. But you see, in the past, it used to be a case of FM coming in at the end. Just after the it is during the handover, they remember you just because they think that it's time to clean the place and make it useful, right? But ideally, the FM is supposed to be a stakeholder, a participant at every stage. But you see, we talk about this again and again. Oh, the FM should be a stakeholder, a participant in every stage. But does the FM even know what it should be doing at every stage? So if they say you have to give input at the planning stage, you give input at the designing stage, you give input at the construction stage, you give input all the way to testing, commissioning, and handover stage, and then they hand over to you for facility management. What inputs should come from you as a facility manager? So that, because if you don't know it, you cannot develop yourself in that area. And you will not talk the things that will make sense. You see this conversation where they gather together and you talk something that is out of point. They will not even refer to you again next time. They'll just discount you as one of those who is a nuisance in the team. That's even if they allowed you in the first place. But if you are still busy counting soap bars and counting, doing rosters for workers because that you couldn't find somebody else to mark attendance for you, then they will not even bother to call you. Okay? They won't bother to call you at all. At the planning stage, the FM's job is to help determine requirements. You understand the users. You understand their habits. You have experience with them. You contribute that at the planning stage. A simple thing that I see everywhere is this mistake of having 4 toilets for male, 4 toilets for female. I don't understand where that came from. Some studies, some habits, some behaviors, some demographic knowledge is with the FM as to how many of these sexes actually use a toilet, the WC. You can have 1 WC for 100 men, and 1 in 100 men will sit on it. They'll just use the urinal every day and never sit on that bowl. It's clean, it's fine, it's perfect, but they don't need it. So why do I have 4 for male and 4 for female when there's almost a queue if they have 100 female? It's even more complex. There are certain industries, certain job groups, there are certain kind of places where you know the demographic balance is not 100-100. I'm just give you one example where the FM has knowledge to contribute here. How do people use spaces? We observe them. If you are not able to document and make a case for certain inputs into your plan that will accommodate your users, then there's a problem. And then design stage. As facility managers, you have one edge over other building professionals in the built environment. You know degradation curves. You may not have heard of this terminology, degradation curve, but you know what happens to a 4-inch pipe when it is used as a drain and there are 90-degree bends over the years. It's not the first day that a pad is flushed down a toilet that the toilet pipe blocks or the chamber blocks downstairs. It's not the first day. Many months and years to be going through. But after some years, there will be some sediments, fibers gathering at certain corners, especially those 90-degree bends. And the next time somebody flushes a pad in, it becomes a wedge. The designers and the builders, they know that 4-inch pipes, 90-degree bends work anytime. After all, it's liquid, you are flushing through it. They don't understand what you go through in 5-year-old buildings, 10-year-old buildings, 15-year-old buildings, and 20-year-old buildings. You know that. It is you that can tell them, you know what, men, ladies and gentlemen, can we adjust this piping to 6 inches, or can we introduce 45-degree bends? You are trying to take care of future problems during design. You also understand maintainability issues. You know, it's good to build everything fanciful, big deal. We can rise in every direction. But you will be saddled with the responsibility of changing that bulb in that forever height. Servicing that AC that was pasted to the back of the wall of a 6th level building. And you have to go and service the outdoor unit every 3 months. You can tell the design guys, you know what, let's find a solution to this. Because you are there, your input, that input is valuable. Some guys will wire the whole mall anyhow. And tomorrow they will not tell you, customers are angry about the way you are sharing light bill. You have to meter them. There are some places you cannot meter. They wired somebody's socket into another person's light. The other person's AC is looped with the next man's AC. You can't even meter it. They were saving cables. They were doing all kinds of things. It is your job during design, both electrical, mechanical, plumbing. You may not necessarily go in there with that expertise. Oh, well, we know what we are doing. We have to advise you. No. It's simple questions you'll be asking. Simple questions. And should there be a need for the users of this 40 square meter space to isolate? Where will their own electrical system be? If for any reason tomorrow we want to meter, where will their own panel or their own metering point be? You know, for what are you asked? There was one site where there was no drainage on the streets. And to my amazement, my designers built finish and said their stormwater drain is going to percolate. They put perforated pipe under the site so that when the old water gathers to one side, those pipes will now receive it and the water will now percolate inside under the road. I just asked a simple question. I hope you understand what the water table is like in this area during rainy season. Because during rainy season, the place is saturated almost up to 1 foot to the top. Where will you carry your storm water to absorb into? Questions that touch, right? In a very humble way, you make all of this input. All the way from construction, they're making changes. Who is updating it in the drawings? Because you may end up with design drawings relabeled. At testing, they will switch on and off things for you to see. They'll do a cadabra and say they've tested. You won't have documentation. Commissioning, you won't have documentation. In fact, the bulk of commissioning will fall on you eventually because not up to 20% of commissioning can be done after construction. Almost 80% will be done when you have people or populated the place. The data will have to be collected by you on adequacy of every space and facilities and assets. And then handover, what checklists of documentation do we have? When the architect drops 1 or 2 CDs, the engineers bring 2 folders of A1 sheets. The other one brings PDF files. One drops AutoCAD files somewhere. By the time you guys, when they hand over everything to you, you're as confused as everyone else that brought all those things. So by the time you get to FM, you would have solved all your problems if you know exactly what to contribute to at every level. All right, and we're going to have a class on design build commissioning. So I'm not going to talk about this in today's class because we'll have a whole class just to deal with this documentation and all of these requirements for coming through from construction. Is this the first class that has an assessment? I think so. So you have an assessment, kindly work on it today. It's due on Monday because every assessment is due before the next class. And you already receive a link where you can just click, scroll to this class and fill in your answers or upload your answer if you've written it in a Word document. All right, so that's our lesson for today. I'll take your questions. If I see your hand up, I'll give you a chance to speak. Let me quickly address this issue of naming yourself on the screen. I still see 14, 14, 14. Can you speak up 14, 14, 14? Let me know who you are, and so I can talk through how you can rename your screen. Uh, 14, 14, 14, are you still there?
Yeah, good evening, sir. Mr. Erubami, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, my name is Adewale, Oguniran Kodri Adewale.
Okay.
Yes, I am sorry, I'm on transit.
Okay.
So I'm coming from somewhere. That's the reason I've not been able to
edit it. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Please, you try and do it for Monday's class, yeah?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right,
thank
good,
you, sir.
good.
Yes,
You're
sir.
welcome. Infinix Note 10. Can you please speak up? Infinix Note 10. Infinix Note 10.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Paul.
You're welcome.
Sorry, my name is Timmy David.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I will have to check and do that and get the name there. I don't know why. How come it changed to Infinix Note 10?
Okay, so once you just click on that more or that icon option, you will see rename there.
Okay.
You'll see rename there. And then once you click on it and rename.
Okay. I'll sort it out, sir. I'm sorry.
What's your name again?
Timmy David.
Timmy David.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I just did it for you. Adewale, I can also rename you. I hope it will not. Adewale.
Yes, Oguniran Kodri Adewale. Yes, sir.
Totally wrong. Good.
Yes,
So
sir.
let's
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And then Galaxy Note 9. Please speak up. Galaxy Note 9. Galaxy Note 9, please speak up. Because I'm trying to do this now because we will not allow anybody without proper name in class. It's against our policy. It's against our security protocol as well. Galaxy Note 9, then Zoom user. That's the last two I think we need to fix. Zoom user, please speak up. If you're seeing your screen and your name is Zoom user, please speak up. I want to help you rename yourself so that we don't have to remove you from class, okay?
Hello, good evening, Mr. Paul.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is Florence. I'll rename it today.
Okay, good.
So can I get anyone for
You're welcome.
Okay, so
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. This is Moshood Oyebode.
Moshood Oyebode. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so let's go to the questions now. The first person is Mubo. Mubo, please ask your question.
Hello.
Yes, we are with you.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, my question goes like this because being in this class, thank you for the opportunity to learn, because I'm in two phases, which you know. I'm the facility manager. I'm also the employer. So it's a bit dicey for me. So it shows that I have a lot of work to do. That is me knowing what to expect.
Yes.
When the people that I've hired now. Okay. So with the last time we spoke, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, I got another project added to what I have now. So I found out that, like you said, when you go to the building life cycle management, we end up being at the last point, which is the facility management side.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? Because sometimes these jobs, you might not even know the genesis, and you are to be called to come and facilitate the place to make sure the place runs well. Are you saying now that I can come in from the testing, because I try to wrap my head around what is here, or I come in through the commissioning, because construction is absolutely has been done. So you can't vet what has been put into the concrete or the pipe that has been on the conduit. So it means that I have to insist on the testing and the commissioning, then follow up with the handover before you now start talking. So that means now that we don't just take in projects from people. If I think this too, because I can see the way the color runs, it gets to a time that it's where the facility is supposed to kick in. So I took mine from the testing, which makes sense to me. I think that's the word I wanted to say.
Okay. Best practices for you to be in there from planning. If you cannot be in there from planning because you are not in the picture at all, you want to be in there from design. If the scenario is the same, you want to be in there from during construction.
Okay.
Now, if you are not in the picture at all during construction, at least be there during the transition, which is commissioning and testing and handover. Because everything you need to do in facility management, you will need a lot of data and information coming from construction, from design and plan, right? So you need all that information before you can now say, I'm effectively managing the facility. Now, but there are sometimes you don't have access to all of this from construction. The buildings have already been in use for the last 10 years, and you are just being brought in to manage it when there are crises and it looks like everything's going to fall apart, right? You now need to carefully reverse engineer the process of gathering this data, which means you are going to do measure drawing to produce as built drawings. You are going to write as many specification items for all the common spare parts that are available in the building. You are going to do all of those commissioning that I can call that we have different commissioning that happens after a building has been built, right? We have the retro commissioning and the continuous commissioning, right? Retro commissioning is when you do a major overhaul, a major renovation. But a continuous commissioning happens when you continue to gather data on adequacy as people use the facilities on an ongoing basis. So when you are in such a state where you're taking over an old property and you need to gather data, you can do a retro commissioning, which means it's a spot in time commissioning of an old facility to gather data on the adequacy of that facility at that point in time. And then you can use a template for asset register compilation, condition assessment compilation to gather information that will help you manage that facility. So as a minimum, as by way of reverse engineering things that you did not get data for, you were not part of, all those early stages. You will get an asset register, you will get as-built drawings. If you can generate an operations and maintenance manual, which we're going to talk about in another class, and then you will get all of these other drawings that you created from measuring what you met. So in essence, every of the data that comes from that cycle that we just described are useful for facility management. If you did not get the opportunity of being around where those data were supposed to be gathered and gathered correctly and given to you, then you reverse engineer the process of acquiring as much as possible through that process, okay?
Okay, yeah, the second one, in facility management, do they have specification? As me as an architect, my area of specification is designer.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not asking, in facility, do they have where there's a call, like you said, this has to do with budgeting. Somebody tells you that's what he or she, when you employ this person is on budgeting, you employ this person is like what you, I think in one of your notes, you had the soft and the hard
services
documentation.
Yes,
so
yes.
That is just strictly, that's what they're for, to do documentation, not to do daily recording or something. They're just there to make sure that all your documentation are right.
I think if we do a market survey through an advertisement and calling for applications, we'll find people who have been doing certain specific things that we need. But because we're a young profession and we are not many in the profession at this level, we are all just trying to acquire generalist and master's knowledge and skills, right? It is true experience in specific niches, in specific areas like you just described, that can make someone who is already knowledgeable as a master or generalist now say, I have done specifically those kind of things before, that I can now say I'm an expert in that area, okay? So for now, everyone should learn what documentations are required and start working towards putting those documentations together. So you are not a novice in that regard. So when an opportunity comes, for example, like Migold gives an opportunity for us to find someone to be an expert in generating this documentation, you can say, I've worked in so and so places and I'm able to serve in that position, okay? For now, just learn the general skills and requirements, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Jude.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Good evening, and good evening to everyone. I don't know how to start this because it's a little bit complicated. You and I were together sometime early January, and we discussed a host of things. And one of those things we discussed actually came up today in one of the meetings I had with our procurement unit. Trying to start up the new projects I told you. And then I was now, I've sent out the scope of work requirements, asking that a facility management, a strategic facility management planner or consultant must be part of the consulting team. Now, it was a big tug of war, as in complete pushback. Nobody wanted anything to do with the facility management strategic planner or
consultant. Yeah.
No matter what I said, they kept saying, no, it is only when the project has been completed that is when the consultant will come. And I began to ask questions, the same way you asked me questions then, that have they even thought about whether we may actually need these equipment if we don't, do a strategic planning and then also look at tactical planning on this. We may not need some of the equipment that may be proposed. And among all of us in that meeting, that none of us have that capacity or the capability or the professional training to be able to carry out that function. And I don't want a situation where we finish a project and we are running costs to manage it. Mm-hmm. I want a building that will be sustainably maintained over time and cost effective. Yeah. It was a complete pushback. And I am not giving up because I didn't succeed in making them to accept.
Yes.
And I want to ask, how best now can one be able, what argument can I push forward that can now really convince them? Because we spent over 2 hours arguing back and forth, and I saw that it was delaying us from concluding on the main purpose of the meeting, which is to
so you let it
get
slide.
Consultants. Exactly. Yeah. So I just let it slide. But I told them that I'm not giving up, and I'm still going to take it up with them on a later date.
Okay. So I don't know when we have the design build commissioning training on the schedule, but I would ask the admin Baraka to send you that particular course, that particular material. Study it and let's have a talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Study it, let's have a talk, because even with the client I'm currently working with right now, I made a case for them to have an FM consultant as part of their initial planning and design team. I didn't get a job. I didn't even know when the job was bidded out, but at least I was happy that they bought the idea of having an FM consultant. So they now have a mechanical, electrical consultant. They now have an architectural consultant. They now have a project management consultant who is like the coordinator of the project. They now have an FM consultant. Before, they would have had an electrical consultant. They would have had a mechanical consultant. They would have had a plumbing consultant, 3 different consultants, right? Yeah. Before the architectural. But they ended up having an MEP consultant, right? Of course, he's going to work with a team. The MEPs, they tend to work together in one company nowadays, unlike before, where you just have electrical and separate like that. And then they now have the architectural or design team, project management team, and the FM consultant. And because, and how did I get them to think like this in the first place, to be able to make that decision, was because of some of the things we've talked about in this lesson. So I had to make an outline, just basically make an outline showing the specific areas that the FM contributes to decisions that are being made at planning, design, construction, all the way down. And that made a difference. So an outline of such, when you review it, will give you some additional points to arm yourself when making such a case in the future, especially when you can customize those points to experiences you have had within the organization with past projects. You understand? Especially if you now have data on how certain mistakes done from construction and design has led to costs that could have been avoided. Throw up those data and all of a sudden everybody will back off. You understand? So that's the way to go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. At least this will really help me to be able to still continue. At a point, what I even told them when I saw they were not ready to budge, and these are the people that eventually will send reports to the management, and which management we eventually work with. So I told them, okay, fine. If I'm not going to put an FM consultant at the beginning, but when the design has been done, I will need an FM consultant to still come
just
around.
To take a look, yes.
Take a look at the design.
Yes.
And give us
a one-off fee, at least. Very good.
Exactly,
very good
one-off fee,
very
so that
good
they can give us a good view of all of it and guide the design consultant on how to go about it, rather than just having everything.
Fantastic. I call that your strategy a foot in the door strategy.
It wasn't easy.
It's a foot in the door strategy. You know what? In fact, that service can even be provided for free, right? if they don't want to even pay for it. But by the time the analysis comes out, it's them that will apply. Say, please bring let's have them on the team, you know. So that's how it works. It's just like this program we are having today now. You know, when we sell the FM diploma to people, it's almost like, oh, they just want to sell their training. They don't want to sell their training. But once you come into the class, after class 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll be like, oh my goodness, what have I been doing with all my career, you know? So, but trying to convince you is still hard, you know. Yes. But once you are in, you know, this is a good thing that I've gotten myself into. So that's how it is. It's the same way for every new thing. People don't just embrace change with both hands. You have to, you know, kind of force it in, and then when they start licking it and enjoying it, they say, oh, bring more.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Habib.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Paul. Good evening, everyone. Such a wonderful experience to be a part of this class. My own is observation.
Okay.
Okay. I observed that the presented material is quite different from the one that was shared with us earlier.
Okay.
So please, going forward, I would like us to really look into that, so that as we are following the presentation, we are as well following the material, or perhaps we might have gone through the material before the presentation.
Sure. What significant change did you observe? What significant change did you observe?
Like for this, the material we presented to us today, I think is different totally from the facility strategy that was shared to us yesterday.
No. There were 2 slides you got. You got maintenance strategies first, and another email came to say, kindly disregard that. We are going to do facility planning, strategic facility planning. You understand? So maintenance strategy is going to be done on another day.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
It was so you got 2, and we are dealing with 1. That second one will be sent again, and we'll do it another day. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So my
Michael.
question. Sorry,
okay,
sir.
Ahead,
the first one was an observation. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a facility manager, and I took over from. I just want you to elaborate or expatiate on the reverse engineering, because it has to do directly to me. Okay, I'm a facility manager, and I took over a building that was built 10 years ago.
Okay, good.
A lot of people have been the service coordinator or the facility manager there. So presently now, the building is it's over 10 years, 10 to 15 years. So doing a reverse engineering for a building for that with such for a building
age
of over
history,
10 years, age and history.
Sure.
Thank you. I think I would just like you to elaborate on it. So.
Okay, that's good. So the ideal situation would be that when you came up to that building, you were able to get as-built electrical drawings showing all the distribution boards and panels and all the circuit layouts. You're supposed to have met as-built plumbing drawings showing all the piping networks, hotline, code line, drainage, specification, their dimensions, their material types. You'd have met architectural drawings. Are we still together, Habib?
Hello, sir. Observation. Sorry to interrupt. That as this drawing, all those drawings you are referring to, they are not on site. They are just, I work in a government organization. So where we have headquarters in Abuja, and you are the field officer in branches, you know, those drawings are kept in the headquarters.
Yes.
So most time when you request for such drawing, they tell you like it's a no-go area. I don't know what's so secretive about it that they cannot share it with the facility manager that's managing the building.
Your case is kind of unique. I used to hear people saying, we don't have it. We've lost it. Nobody knows where it is. The designers are all dead. Or some architects, the laptop crashed, and so there's no file to refer to. But to tell you that it is there that you shouldn't ask for it, I think it's a little bit harsh. You make a little bit of a business case for specific use requirements and send it up. I don't think it's something that I don't know how far they want to incriminate you for asking at all. The worst case scenario, you'll get a reply that you should do without it, and we don't need you seeing those drawings, right? But you cannot use hearsay to conclude that they will not give it to you. So ask with sensible analysis. If you send an email or a message that says, these are the things I was applied to, these are the things my work will impact, productivity, well-being, safety of the individuals, and these are the work packages I normally will implement to be able to lead to those outputs. And to be successful at implementing these work packages, I need this particular drawing for item 1, 2, 3. I need this particular drawing for item 3, 4, 5, 6. I understand these documents are available in the head office. I would like assistance in giving me photocopies. You know how landlords like to keep the original documents. You want photocopies or scanned copies or something you can just refer to, so you can get some dimensions and you can get some, some data to work with, right? They will usually reply positively to such because you're making sense, right? Now, but if it didn't exist at all, you can't assess it because it does not exist. Reverse engineering the process of acquiring those data means performing measured drawing, putting tape to measure length and breadth and height, and drawing and creating those drawings, getting a draftsman to draw. Then nowadays there are scanners, 3D scanners for scanning spaces and using point cloud to regenerate the entire 3D of your spaces and put all those things back into drawings that you can assess. And then for electrical and mechanical, you may not be able to get three-dimensional drawings through reverse engineering because they are buried in walls, unless you want to use laser technology. But at least you can do circuit or piping layouts, which a draftsman can do. If a draftsman sits with technicians and start asking questions, this three-quarter pipe that come out of this wall, where it passed, the technician say, oh, that time this thing broke, we broke that wall, we saw this one, it ended there. This one passed here, this one passed here. You can recreate as much as possible just by talking with technicians who know those lines, and then a draftsman can draft all of those electrical and mechanical line drawings for you again. The same thing with the architectural. I started with the architectural, in fact, so that you can overlay the investigations and knowledge you can gather from the team to redraw your parts. And then in worst case scenario, just do a circuit layout, which shows this is the big panel. There are 5 panels from it. Each panel has 4 dBs, and each dB, dB1, covers this 2 units of apartment, and there are 10 fuses in each of those dBs. Each fuse is, one is to fridge, one is to AC, one is to lights, and then properly label those dBs. Automatically, you have created your as-built documentation for electrical just by doing that circuit layout and how power is drawn from one to the next in a small spreadsheet, and then you create stickers to go and mark your dBs out, and you're done. Yeah. So reverse engineering, the process of acquiring data, is actually measuring, marking, drawing, and having those documentations ready. Okay. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, so I will start with an example that I had with my former company where you have been. You were there last year. You remember we went through floating jetties.
Yes.
To get on site. So in the course of this particular training, this lecture now, I remembered something that happened about 4 or 5 years ago, and it had to do with the installation of those floating jetties. There were issues with the planning and development department that put the jetties in place, and they didn't quite, do it the way it was supposed to be. And as per the quality of what was installed, obviously when you were there last year, you saw it was already, falling apart.
Yes.
So
yes.
as at that point in time, my bosses were not in town. So I was supposed to inspect the floating jetty and then accept it, by way of handing over and all that. So the rule of thumb is that you just inspect maybe 10 to 20% of the installation. You can't inspect everything because of the bolts and nuts and everything. But I didn't even get to 2 or 3% of the inspection. I rejected the whole thing. I didn't even sign any document because I felt if I had gotten to this extent and I was already seeing defects, there was no way I could, go around, and obviously there was no way I would sign it. So why I'm bringing this up is eventually I didn't sign it, and the department that was involved in that called for the project took over the job itself from the planning and development department. And I don't know what happened in between. My boss, when he came back, I didn't hear anything about it. So it was a situation where if I had signed it, that would have been my name on that document. And if something had gone wrong, or eventually things started going wrong, and it would have been me. So eventually, my former boss, he left, as you well know, and I was put in charge. So my dilemma at the time was, before I left, if I had brought something like that up, that would have meant that some heads would have, some people would have lost their jobs.
Yeah.
Because eventually I had to be saddled with maintaining the place. So
yes.
What I did was I did the much I could do, you understand, without, putting anyone in trouble. But thinking about it in hindsight, that was a project that was supposed to, the warranty was supposed to be like normal floating jet, 10 years, 15 years before you even start doing anything. But within the first 2 weeks, I was already seeing problems.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people are listening to this course, and I think one of the modules we will talk about maybe integrity and all that. But in situations like that, with your experience, what would you advise? Because it had to do with one's integrity, and people could lose their jobs. And at the time, I really didn't have the authorization, even though I reported to my former boss. But and eventually nothing was done. But I know at the end of it all, it's costing the company a lot of money. So okay. Your advice in such situations, please.
Okay, so first, you should not be given the job of accepting any project that you were not part of understanding the scope, right? So the scope documentation should be clear. If I'm given a scope documentation and I'm trying to take over that project and I inspect and I see issues, those issues must be issues that show variance or discrepancy with approved scope. And I must be able to identify, itemize, and analyze them. I will be dispassionate in doing that. I will probably not say, oh, I've seen enough, not go to the end. No, I will walk through the entire inspection, scope item by scope item, and finish all documentation. And then I'll submit a copy to the contractor, more like a snag list like we do in construction. And then I'll submit a copy to my supervisor or whoever has sent me to do that. I will do it as a formal report without an opinion. Without an opinion will not make me look biased, will not make me look as if I'm fighting anybody. I will simply say, I would love to sign this document, but these are my observations. Clearly itemizing, explaining how each observation varies with its scope requirements. And adding, if you are doing it on a table, a column that describes the likely implication of accepting such variation or discrepancy. With that, submitted. Not everybody will like you, right? Not everybody will like you. There's no two way about it. You'll see how some people that say, oh, no, you shouldn't have written that. You want to sack us, you want to do this, you want to do that. But you are working in a very high risk environment that compliance has to be total, right? And I dare say to everyone in this class, if you are going to be in that job for 1 year, for 1 month, for 1 week, or for 1 day, do it with the best, highest level of professionalism and integrity. Because when the chips are down and the story is being told, they will still remember that you did your job well, no matter how much they vilified you for doing it. And when critical things are required tomorrow and they need somebody who is very sensitive to discrepancies that is going to cause problems later, they will remember you and call you back to come and do big things. But if you are the compromiser, if you are the one that, will look the other way and just let it pass, after all, it's public property or government property, or it's not my business, not my father's business, then it may haunt you in your career. It may not haunt you in your current career, but definitely you have something in your conscience that you have to deal with. So that's just what I have to say about that. Be as transparent as possible, be as nice as possible to everybody. But when the risk is very high, because you've analyzed it, do not compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'm not sure Jude wanted to say something else. I lowered your hand because I think your hand was raised from the previous one. So thanks everybody, and have a good evening. Looking forward to the physical class starting tomorrow, and see you again in class on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.